o'clock. I start on time. Thank you, Matt. Early is on time is late. You look so much like somebody I know. Yeah,
Me,
that's
yeah.
why I had to ask your name again, because I'm like, are you sure you're not, are you sure you just have a fake name? I'll have to send you a picture of it.
That's funny. I don't hear that often.
I'll send you a
Like
picture.
I'm not one with a familiar face.
Oh my God, and her voice is the same too.
That's so funny.
Yeah, great. So today we're going to talk about negotiating inspections. So Becca, has anybody else done an inspection yet? Have you negotiated one?
Yeah.
So, my voice is not doing well. I'm going to leave this on. So when you're buying a house, there is nothing in the contract that says a seller has to do repairs. There's nothing in the contract that says that you're basically buying the house as is. We are in a common practice of negotiating inspections, but the seller does not have to do it. You're buying their house the way it is. We had just come about with saying, okay, well, let's ask for inspections. I'm going to start as the buyer side. Let's talk from the buyer's perspective first. So when you're going to do inspections, first thing you want to do is you want to have, what I do is I give my buyers choice of inspectors. I give them 3 names to pick from. But I also let them know they can pick anybody they choose, but here are 3 that I recommend. And I pick my inspectors based on their reports. So when you get an inspection back, either side, look at their reports and see if you think that they're good. When I mean that they're good is, are they vague? Some inspectors are really vague. They just cover their butts that they're too vague and they don't help anybody. Then you end up making all decisions for them, which we're not the inspectors, and that's not our job. So I want somebody to tell me, is it working or is it failed? Not, it could be not working, or it could be failed. I don't want that variable, because that's not me. That's an interpretation that I don't want to have to make. A lot of them do it to protect themselves, but they're paying money to have somebody tell them what works and what doesn't work. So I look at, and some are alarmists. Some are like, this is all bad, this is all bad. Well, some things aren't all bad, they just need some attention. So you have to decide when you look at inspection reports, what inspectors you like. Because it's important to pick one that you're comfortable with. When they order this, so I used to order the inspections for them. And said, okay, we have inspection scheduled for Tuesday at 6 o'clock. I no longer do that because I do not want to be responsible, because I have to tell you, 9 times out of 10, people don't like the inspection. Not that day, but somewhere along the line, the inspector missed this, the inspector missed that. It happens all the time. My kids have all said it. They think inspectors are a joke. So I don't want to be responsible for saying, I ordered the inspector. So I've taken that off my plate and just given them some names. Here are some inspectors that we've used in the past. However, you may choose any inspector you like. My availability is X, Y, and Z. If you could schedule around that, that would be great. Do you want to be at the Do you want to be at the inspection? Yes.
Yeah.
The reason why you want to be at the inspection is because these buyers oftentimes have never been in an inspection. They've never maybe not bought a house, or they bought one house 30 years ago. So they really don't understand what they're talking about when the inspector's talking about things. So you're there as another set of ears. Because when the report says that the relief valve isn't long enough, well, now they're like, huh? So you tell them, it's the pipe that comes off the water heater has to be within 6 inches of the ground. So you know what they're talking about. It's another set of ears. I did not go to an inspection one time, and I had another agent do it for me, and the buyer was really upset about it, and this was 15 years ago, was really upset about something, and the deal fell apart over it, and they fired me. So, if I have another person go through the inspection report, or go to inspection with them, just let them know that, so this is what's going to happen, so they understand it. We're not the decision makers, they are. We're here as advice and guidance. Now, Marcia and I have been through enough inspections that we probably could be inspectors. We know what to look for. When I go on inspection report, and I actually follow around with the inspector, because I want to see what he's looking at and what he's doing. So not every inspector does everything correctly. I want every window opened and closed. Now, I've seen other inspectors not do that. I want every outlet checked that they can get to. Not every inspector will do that. I want all of the utilities, all the waters turned on every fixture and left on, and look downstairs. Not everyone will do that, they'll just turn it on right there and shut it off. I wouldn't know. So sometimes the inspectors aren't always fond of me being there because I'm a little bit aggressive, because I want the inspection to be the best for my clients. When you go, before you do the inspection, I always have a conversation, and I have this conversation with my buyers and my sellers. My conversation is, listen, we are looking for things that are structural defects, hidden defects, and safety defects. Cosmetic defects, things that you can see that are wrong, the house was priced accordingly. So if you have this conversation with both parties ahead of time, it makes it very easy, because you're not looking for things being fixed. So, if the seller's disclosure says that there's a crack in the countertop, and the inspector comes through and says there's a crack in the countertop, well, they priced the house because there was a crack in the countertop. And when I'm on the listing side, when they start asking for these repairs, I say, we disclose that to you, the house was priced accordingly. So that's why in the seller's disclosure, they have to disclose everything that they know is wrong with the property for that purpose. So if it's a structural defect that sellers don't know, if it's a hidden defect, for example, a cracked combustion chamber, that's a common one in your heaters. When was the last time somebody opened up the heater and looked, right? So the seller doesn't know that. The sellers aren't up on the roof, they don't know what the flashing around the chimney looks like, they don't know about the shingles. So there are things that they don't know. They don't know about electrical, nobody should ever take a panel off the front of an electric panel, so they don't know if there's double taps or, blank knockouts, whatever. So those are things that they're safety issues, for one. They're also things that they're hidden, that the sellers don't know. So I always tell both parties, and I talk too fast, sorry. I always tell both parties that we're looking for structural safety and hidden defects. Those are the things that we're going to ask to get corrected, because you don't want to buy a house with a cracked foundation that's a structural foundation. Now, there's cracks in the foundation all the time, and they're normal and customary. They're like the wrinkles that we get with age. Your house starts to crack, you'll see cracks inside. Some will freak out over them, but some cracks are normal. If you're concerned in an inspection about a structural crack, then you recommend hiring a structural engineer. Because your home inspector he's a jack of all trades, master of none. So if he sees that this might be a structural crack, take it to the next level. Hire a structural engineer. If he says this stucco doesn't look good, hire a stucco inspector, which is a whole other thing. If he sees that this looks like mold, hire a mold company, a mold inspector. Recommend it to your client that we should take this one step further. It's up to you, but we recommend this. Now, as a buyer, if your inspection is on day 9 of your 10 days, then you might have to, in your reply to inspection, say, we want to have the basement, as part of the reply, the basement mold issue be inspected and certified from a mold remediation company that it's not mold. There's some words that say, so you put it on the buyer, put it on the seller. If you're at day 9, you want to put it on the seller to do. And they can say, no, we're not going to do that. You want that, you do that. Okay, great. So now I have more time. You're still negotiating. You really can't do inspections after day 10. Contract is for the default dates. The contract is from 1 to 10 are inspections. The next 5 days are not inspections unless you do an addendum to extend that 10 day, which is so if you're at the point where you did a reply and said, we want you to give us a certification that there's no mold in this basement. Okay? And they say, depends on what side you're on the thing, if you want the mold check, you need to hire a mold inspector. Great, then we're going to do a change in terms, extending the inspection dates for another X days. Got it? Yes.
So you said the first 10 days of the contract is for inspection?
Yes. The contract is defaults, if you don't change the date, it defaults to 10 days.
Okay.
That means you have 10 days to do your inspections and to prepare your reply to inspection. And in your reply, 10% say, I love this house, I'm taking it as is, and we don't have to do anything. 10% will say, this house has too much problems, I don't want it, and they want to terminate. The other 80%, we're going to negotiate either repairs or a credit. Got it? So you have 10 days to do that through inspections and get the reply to the seller.
How often is it extended, or is it typically 10 days?
It shouldn't be extended too often. And in this crazy market that we've just lived in, if they did inspections at all, some were doing inspections in 5 days, because trying to make it a little bit more. So if you're in a competitive market, you have to look for ways to make your offer better than everybody else, and that could be one of them, making your inspections a shorter time frame. Because what happens is, when you do inspections, your house is off the market, and nobody wants their house off the market that long. So, they don't have to do the they don't have to do the reports. So as the buyer, you've now read your inspection report. And what I do for both buyer and seller is I send a report to the clients. And I say, Becca, here's your report from, oh, you got a copy of your report, or if you're the seller, here's a copy of the report. Look it over, discuss it, we'll talk tomorrow. One thing I've learned is don't talk to them about the inspection report that day, because both sides get their backs up. The buyers are like, oh my gosh, there's so much, because it can look daunting to them, like there's so much wrong, and it's really not. Oh my gosh, isn't it? And the seller's like, what do you mean? We gave them at this price, we're not doing anything. So don't have that conversation with them right then, because now you're backpedaling. Let them digest it. Let them think about the report. And then the next day, say, so look it over. What time's a great time for us to get together and discuss the report tomorrow? And then schedule it. Shall we talk tomorrow night? Do you want me to come over? Whatever you want to do, but plan it the next day. If you have the time in the 10 days. Remember, if you're the buyer, you have 10 days to get that reply to the seller's agent. So if it's day 10, you got the report day 10, you can't wait day 11. And if you know in the contract that if you miss that date, you now are buying the house as is. And if you are you're the buyer's agent, and you didn't get that reply in day 10 out to that seller, and there's problems that they want, guess who's paying for those problems? You are. No, the agent is. Because you were not you took them out of contract.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're gonna be suing you because they had the heater wasn't working. Well, you now did not get the reply in time, so nobody has to fix the heater. Now, sometimes you can call up the agent and say, Marcia, oh my God, I missed the date. Here's what I'm not gonna reply, we really need the heaters fixed. Can you handle that? And she's going to say, listen, Pat, we all have been in this situation. Let me see what I can do for you. Now, her job is not to make that decision. Her job is to talk to her seller and say, here's the situation. We want to do the right thing. Let's take care of it. Or they could say, that's their problem. So, and if it's their problem, and if you didn't stay on top of your dates for your clients, guess who's paying for that heater repair?
How long does usually an inspection, so say you get an inspection on Thursday, how long typically does it take to?
They often get it back to you that night or the next day. They're
Okay.
very fast, they
Okay.
know.
Gotcha.
Nowadays, it's all computerized, they often walk around with a tablet and they just put it in.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty fast, that's
Okay.
not the problem, you don't have to wait days.
Okay.
What you do have to wait days for is a radon inspection. So if you were a buyer's agent and you have a radon inspection, you need to make sure you give yourself 4 days, because weather permitting, because the barometric pressure will affect radon, you want to make the radon inspection early.
Like day 1, day 2?
Yeah, get it in quickly,
Gotcha.
okay? Because you do need 4 days for that. If you did some days, some are 2, some are 4, but I always allow 4 in case of the weather. Or if the seller left a window, if it's in the summertime and they don't have air, and they left the window open, and they got a bad reading, because you have to have all windows closed for inspections. If you're selling a house and they don't have air conditioning, you need to let them know. When we list this house, if they do a radon inspection, you will have to keep your windows closed for 2 to 4 days. So make plans. Okay, so they've done the inspection. You've decided that here's rules of thumb. And Marcia, please chime in anytime, because you've been around a lot. So if you're a buyer's agent, so let's say they need a new, let's just say a roof. Now, it's gonna be expensive, but I'll just use a roof in general. So if you are the buyer and you need a new roof, would you want the seller to put on the roof? Why not, Becca?
Because the seller's leaving and they don't really care about quality control.
Right.
You want the buyers to be in charge of that so that everything's up to their satisfaction.
Right. So same with like a heater. If a seller is paying for it and they're moving out, they're gonna buy the cheapest thing they can get to fix it. It's gonna be done cheaply, right? Why wouldn't they? They just have to do it. If a buyer's moving into a house, they want a nice heater or they want a nice roof. So we often then give ask for what is a credit. So the credit is really good, depending on their mortgage, how much, if they can get a credit. So until you learn that process, I would talk to your lender and talk ahead of time. Say, Bruce, because I use Bruce a lot, hey Bruce, Mary, we just did a home inspection, there's some issues, and they want to have repairs. They want a credit. How much credit can they get? Because you can, based on the mortgage, you can only get a certain amount, and we're not doing that class today, so I'm not going there. They can only get a certain amount of dollars credit, okay? Because it becomes what's called a seller's assist. So if they have a seller's assist already, a maximum seller's assist already, they can't get a credit. They have to get the repairs. If they don't have a seller's assist, depending on how much they're putting down, how much can they get? So you want to talk, if you don't know the calculations, talk to your lender to find out what that should be. Okay? So you can't automatically assume a credit. One of the things I learned too, this is a sidebar, when you're doing writing up an offer and you want the refrigerator, for example, and it's in the agreement of sale, and the listing, it might say includes these items or excludes these items, or it might be blank because the listing agent wasn't negotiating. And if you said it included this, so the house is on the market for $300,000. You negotiate $290,000, and you did not include the inclusions that were listed in the MLS. Well, as soon as you change the price, first of all, the MLS doesn't mean anything. So you have to make sure you include that. I learned that the hard way. I had to buy a refrigerator. So I am very detailed when I write up an offer to ask them, what do you want included? Do you want the refrigerator? Do you want the washer and dryer? Do you want, and this is an area that people are kind of confused on, flat panel TVs. The brackets that hold the TV as a fixture, it is included. However, people don't understand this, so I spell it out in detail. I either include it or exclude it. If you don't want it left on the wall, exclude it. If you want them left, include it. Anytime you're in question about whether it should be left or not, spell it out. The more you put on that contract, the better it is. All right. Another area, I know this is not just in the same topic, but I want to cover another thing. If you know, this is, some people get caught on this. If you know this house has propane, for example, they have a fireplace, they have a nice propane tank outside. Know if that's leased or they own it. Because if you don't write leased in the listing, then when they buy it, because it will say leased or not, if you don't put that in there, you may be buying, the seller agent might be buying a propane tank. So clearly write these things out in your contracts when you make your agreements. All right, so crediting is a great option if you're the buyer, but make sure they can get the credit, because I've seen agents say, oh, I want the $15,000 credit. And then come down the road as the mortgage process goes through, they're only entitled to $8,000. Well, guess what? They just lost $7,000. They don't get the $7,000. It doesn't show, oh, well, we'll get it to you someplace else. No, you already negotiated for credit. It's not our fault that you a lender can't use the credit. You need to be aware of those things. So these are things that people have not been facing yet. So it's interesting. When I do my reply to inspection, I want repairs done. I ask for them to be done on the reply to inspection. I give a date. If there's a little spot that says by, I put a date in there. And then I also say all work, depending on how much stuff is on there, it could be all work to be by a licensed and insured contractor, or depending on specific items. So like if there's if there's just a missing GFI and he's handy, I won't put that one in. But if there's a broken, the water heater has a problem, I'm going to say, under the water heater to be replaced by a licensed and insured plumbing contractor. So I'll spell it out on a specific line, or I'll do it all. Then when I get the receipts, because I said everything has to be in 10 days before settlement, I get the receipts, and I will then check that they're done by a licensed insured contractor. And if the contractor doesn't look liable, reputable, if it looks, because nowadays anybody can make a contract, like a letterhead, right? Because we all have computers. So I go to the state website for licensed and assured contractors, they make sure they are registered with the state. And if they're not, because so sometimes people who are, for example, a union contractor, they do side work, but they're not insured. So if you are using somebody that, and they think they can because they do work on the side, so I will then ask for a certificate of insurance. Everybody should be able to get named, and that's your homeowner can be named on that certificate of insurance. You have to remember who you're looking out for. You're looking out for your clients. All right? So in this case, you're looking out for the seller, then make sure that they, or the buyer, that they have, the work is being done by a licensed insured contractor.
And this is if the seller is doing the repairs, not doing credit?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So, we talked about them defaulting. So, the contract generally states, the numbers on the contract defer to 10 days to do your inspections and give them a reply. And these are contract things, but the next 5 days is negotiations. During that 5-day period, we'll do 1, 2, and 5. Yeah, but we really want 6 done also, so we do 1, 2, 5, and 6. Well, we'll do 1, 2, 5, and we'll give you $1,000 for 6. So that's your negotiations on the masters. After day 5, there's 2 days to sign the change in terms. And that's not a negotiation period. That's to either accept what you've decided or terminate and write the CTA, okay? So those are your dates to follow. You are very responsible for following these dates. As I said, if anyone's gonna get sued for something, now so the house needs a new roof, right? And you didn't get your reply to inspection to them or terminate within those 10 days, and they need a new roof. What's gonna happen? Who's gonna pay for that roof now? There's a good chance there's gonna be a lawsuit, because you cost that buyer a roof.
Say that again, Pat, I think I'm confused
Okay.
as to what the dates you're saying there.
So you have 10 days to do a reply to inspection,
10
okay?
days to do a reply to
That's
inspection?
the default date number on the contract.
So,
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, okay.
So there's, in the contract, there's in parentheses 10 days, or there's a line, you can whatever number you want. So you have 10 days to do your inspections and do a reply,
And
or-
answer them.
or terminate. So you can send, that you don't have to hear back from the seller, but you have to send them, here's my reply. And what's great to do is say, please confirm. So text them and email them, say I sent you the reply, if it's day 10, because you don't want to miss a date. So in those 10 days, you do your inspections and you send a reply. I don't care if you have to get a mold, as I said, if there's still mold issues you want to look to, put it on the seller so they can throw it back at you and then you can extend that date. But if you need a roof, and day 10 came and you don't have your dates right, and it's now day 11, and you were supposed to write it up for the seller to pay for a new roof, and you didn't, somebody's gonna have to pay for a roof, right? What's gonna happen? So there's a good chance you can get sued over that. Really wanna be careful on your dates.
So do you know insurance kicks in or?
It's $2,500 deductible you have to pay for, whether you win or not. Want to pay $2,500? Right. Now, if you use I don't know how it will work. Well, if you use the disclosure company that does
Seller Shield.
Seller Shield, and they pay for the extended thing, they'll cover your UNO, I think. So your deductible. From the seller's perspective, we were talking about buying, from the seller's perspective, you sit with them and do a seller's disclosure as detailed as possible. I tell them to list everything that they know that's possibly wrong with the house, and also everything they've done to enhance the house. Because, as I said, when the buyer says, we want you to fix the microwave that's not working, well, we told you it wasn't working. We disclosed that and it's priced accordingly. So that's off the table, right?
I think they can still argue about it.
They can, but
They can.
I've
They
got-
can make an argument out of anything.
They could make an argument, but I've always gotten that come across.
So, I mean, they could terminate.
They can terminate, yeah, they can always terminate.
Yeah.
But it saves a lot of aggravation when the buyers know already what the problems are. Yes, they can terminate for anything. They can terminate because they don't like the table and that light switch. They don't have to have a reason to terminate, right? when they go to terminate, in the 10 days, they can terminate. They have the option to accept the house as is, terminate, or negotiate. So I do the seller's disclosure very detailed. Now, the next thing is, as a seller's perspective, you kind of want those dates to be as quick as possible. So in the market where we have a few home inspections, but people are doing inspections, as I said, you might want to move it up to 7 days, because that would make the best offer for the seller. If you have two offers and they're both identical, they're both full price, they both have conventional mortgage, you know both lenders, they're both solid lenders, they both have great credit, great money in their BFI, they both are totally approved for it. And one has a 10-day inspection, the other one has a 7-day inspection, the 7-day will beat out the 10-day, because the sooner you can get that house through inspections, the better. Because as a listing, you don't want your house off the market that long. And it could be off 10, 5, 7, 2. So it could be off 17 days maximum. And 17 days tells the next buyer that this house fell apart from inspections. So you could tell where you are when the house is back on the market. If it's within the first 17 days and it goes back on the market, it's inspections. And if it's like 2 or 3 weeks, it's their mortgage. So kind of know that. That's what's going to happen. If you see a house go back on the market soon, you're going to say to the seller's agent, I see the house was under contract. Can you please send me the home inspection report? And they don't have to, but they have to disclose all the defects that were shown. Now, point blank, happened to me. My client had a severe structural problem in the house from the inspection. Okay, so the buyers walked. I said, okay, we need to fix this or disclose it. I'm not disclosing that. I'm like, you have to. He said, no. So what did he do? He fired me, and he put a piece of furniture in front of the crack. And he sold it to the next person. So I said to Dominic, what do I do? Truly, there's a problem here, and he's not disclosing it. He said, keep an eye out to see who is the buyer's agent, and if there's anybody in our office, let me know. So just because they're required to disclose, you have to disclose. If they don't want to disclose, you have to disclose. And you have to let your sellers know, listen, I'm required to disclose these problems. I cannot let something serious. I had another house in Upper Providence. They said everything was fine, blah, blah, blah. It was under contract, it was fine. Well, interestingly enough, on YouTube, my buyer found it on YouTube. The plumbing contractor did the sewer inspection, posts his videos on YouTube. And they saw the sewer inspection, and they saw the problems in the sewer that the seller did not disclose.
That's amazing.
What are the odds?
So we terminated.
Wow.
Somebody else bought the house. So, there's a lot of things so sellers will not disclose, and agents are supposed to have that disclosed. But what do you do when your seller says, I'm not disclosing? How do you disclose it? It's tough. So Dominic has a document that you can attach your inspection report to the seller's disclosure. So when I have a house that falls apart, and I say, okay, listen, we need to disclose, I said, ideally, the best thing is to take the inspection report and attach it. Now, we can take that inspection report, and we can mark it up, and we can make comments on it, and say, like, the ceiling fan wasn't working because the circuit had been trimmed. Make a note next to that. The leak under the sink has been repaired. And you could go through that and attach it that way. And then you could say the roof we are not addressing. You can put it right there. We're not addressing the roof. So the next buyer who comes along has the knowledge, and if they make the offer, they know what they're looking at, and you've solved the problems. So it's very difficult about this part, is to make sure that if you have problems on that inspection report and you go back live, that the next person knows.
You can use it though to get the seller to do the repair by telling them that we have to disclose this.
Yeah.
So you might as well just do the repair and
Exactly.
hold the
Right.
deal
Right.
together.
Yep. But they can terminate you and say, no, I'm not.
No, definitely.
But yes.
Yeah, it's so
So,
fluid.
and you say to them, listen, these are as Marcia said, these are the repairs that are needed. let's negotiate this out. I know it seems like a lot, but if we don't, we have to disclose, and now we're going back on the market as a property that's already has fallen apart from inspections. So you're not gonna get this offer again. You might have got 300 for it the first time around. Guess what? You're probably gonna get 260 the second time around. So that difference is way less than what the cost of these repairs. So let's just keep moving forward. After all, you do wanna sell your house, right, and move to California? Yes.
Do you only get inspections after you find a buyer for the seller, or can you get it as soon as you sign up with the seller?
So, I'm sorry, say that again?
You only start getting inspections once you have buyers lined up for a seller and you're ready to sell it, or while you're still looking for buyers, do you get the inspection before that?
So the buyer orders the inspection when they have an executed contract.
Okay.
They order this thing. Now, there is a philosophy where some people do a home inspection prior to listing it. So they know what's wrong with it and they fix items that are wrong with it, and then they say, we've done this, this, and this, but these things are wrong, and then they disclose it. I have a client that wants to do that. I don't recommend it because every inspector is different, they find things. Marcia, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't necessarily do that because every inspector is different. So you could fix a bunch of stuff for one inspector and then they do their own inspection and find more,
Yeah.
so.
So I don't do pre-inspection, pre-listing
Right,
inspections.
I never really did.
I've never done it. I have one client that's going to do it, and if that's what they want to do, fine. But I don't do it.
Does that report have to be shared if they've done it prior to listing?
Does the report have to be shared from the first listing? No. They just have to disclose.
Okay, so they have to update, if they already did a seller's disclosure for you and then they did an
So when you
inspection.
see the house went back on the market and it's the same seller's disclosure, you're going to call and say, hi, back it's Calculated
Yes.
Codes. We have a buyer looking at this property, and I noticed that it was under contract. Did you get through inspections? Yes. Great. Can you send me a copy of the inspection report? I'll have to check with my sellers. Okay, great. If you don't send it, can you please have an updated sales disclosure for me?
Yeah,
My clients are really interested in this property, and we want to go look at it.
but even if you did a pre-listing inspection.
No, you don't, you just have to
Okay.
disclose, that's what
Okay.
disclosure's for. So you could say,
Yeah.
or you can attach it, if it's a great inspection report,
Yeah.
say, we had an inspection, here's what it is. And again, mark up, leak under the kitchen sink, corrected by licensed contractor. Whatever, just go
Cool.
through it and make those adjustments. So, and I always prepare everybody, my buyers and sellers, and I jokingly say, they're gonna call out grading, because every house has a grading problem.
Uh-huh.
They're gonna call out the flashing around the chimney, because 99% of the time there's a flashing issue. So there's certain things that you're gonna see, and don't be surprised. And, when I go on a listing appointment, I can kind of tell them, listen, I think you're gonna have a problem with your roof. Your roof is X years old, so be prepared for something about the roof. And I just kind of, this kitchen, I know there's no GFIs in this kitchen, GFCIs in the kitchen, so you're gonna have electrical issues. The good news is you have to, in this township, the township requires GFIs to be replaced. So you're gonna have to do it for the township anyway. So let's just do it now and they can call it, or leave it, let the inspector call it out, then it's one thing for the inspector to call out. So it's like that. But you can look at the Suburban Alliance and find out what each township calls, or you can go to a specific township, look at their UNO requirements and see what the township calls. They have changed from COVID. For example, Ridley used to go into the house. Now they do an affidavit that you have smoke detectors, and they do the sidewalks and curbs. They no longer go inside.
That's for UNO, right?
Yes. So it's good, to know what the township is going to call out. Now, as a buyer, because every UNO inspector does different things, and sometimes I'm shocked what they didn't call out. So if there's something that your client is concerned about, so for example, a handrail down a basement step, it should be called out if it's one of the townships does inside inspections. But if your client is, more of a feeble person, it needs a handrail, I would put it on there and say, handrail to be installed, and put in parentheses, required by township, UNO. So they know that it's not just me, they're going to have to do it anyway.
I'm sorry, where's you and
Use and occupancy.
Okay,
So
yes.
you have to, when you sell a house, each township has a different rule on what has to be done from the township inspection.
Okay.
So for example, Ridley now doesn't go inside, they do an affidavit that there's smoke detectors, and they send out an inspector and he marks the sidewalks, the driveway apron, and the curbing.
Oh,
And if they're cracked or there's height difference, they'll mark it out.
okay, so it's like the township credentials on the
Yes.
house.
Mhm.
Okay.
So a lot of townships are doing sewer inspections. So I got this question I asked my husband who's a plumbing contractor. I said, what do you think about these sewer lines? And so my rule of thumb he gave me is anything that's built before 1960, recommend to your buyers to do a sewer inspection. If they're not in, and that's just my opinion, that's his opinion, okay, it's not a fact. If you are not in a township that requires a sewer inspection, don't order a sewer inspection if your township requires it. So know about that, be knowledgeable. And when you're writing that, after you've written that offer, get together, go look up the township and see what they're gonna need. If they do sewer inspections, the seller's gonna do it. Okay, so. Each township. Suburban Alliance, which is through your dues to Suburban Tri-County, has Suburban Alliance, which has every township that lists their new and new requirements. So one of the challenges when you do the home inspections, especially in the last couple of years, is your buyers are running through a house. They're in the house maybe 15 minutes. Maybe in a good market, they've had a second inspection, a second showing on the house. There's a market where you get to take a show twice, 3 times, it's still not sold. It's not what's been the last couple of years, but that's where we're headed, where they have a half hour to walk around by themselves without people following behind you or overlapping showings. So, but they might have only been in that house for 15 minutes, and they love the house, a quick rate, the offer. But they really, the excitement and the emotion of it all, they really didn't feel the house. So when they're with the inspector, the inspections go anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. Now they're getting to really feel the house. And this is when they're going to decide if they really want the house or not, besides the inspection. So if they go in this house after they ran through the house for 15 minutes that one day at 8 o'clock at night and they didn't see it, and now it's daytime and they see the train runs in their backyard and it's in the floodplain they didn't realize, and there's all these things, and they don't want this house, the inspection's where they can terminate. So when they're writing the offer, that's one of the things you say, listen, I know you didn't always saw the house for 15 minutes, and I know you love it. We'll do the inspections, you go through the contract. Inspections, you use your right to terminate, so you can terminate the contract for anything from inspections.
I think if people get like cold feet and they want to terminate, they can't really terminate. So the way to get them out of it is to have them do the inspection, and then they can get out under that.
Oh,
And there doesn't have to be a reason, and they don't give a reason for this termination from the inspection. You just terminated due to the inspection. I mean, as I said, I didn't like the black tape on that switch, which is why I'm terminating. You don't have to tell them. They can terminate for any reason.
okay. And I'm sorry, for the plumbing, it was 1960.
1960 is my husband's recommendation. Anything
Gotcha.
built older, anything is older than 1960.
Gotcha.
And Springfield has a lot of terracotta pipe. Like a lot of the older homes, there's terracotta. All the sewer lines from the street to the house were terracotta.
I've never heard of that.
So that's a really red flag. Okay? So there's the things that you want to look at. But like Middletown requires a sewer inspection. Different townships require them. They're becoming more and more prevalent because houses are all getting older now. And they're realizing that they needed them. The other thing, a reason about the home inspection, besides negotiating, the buyers say, do I need to be at the home inspection? Are you going to be there? I'm going to be there. My plan is to be there if it fits in my schedule, because you're picking the day and time. I do plan to be there. But I highly recommend, there's a couple or 3, but whatever, I highly recommend one of you to be at the inspection. Because not only is he looking for things that are wrong, he's going to teach you about the house. He's going to show you where your water shut-off is. He's going to show you where your electric panel box is. He's going to show you how to change a filter on your heater. These are all things as a homeowner you need to know. He's going to show you that this toilet does not have shut-off valves on it, so this is not a defect. He might list it as a item to correct, but it's not a defect. You don't have to have shut-offs on your plumbing, on your toilet, but if you have a toilet leak, it's good to have a shut-off valve, so you may want to install them. Okay? There's things that he will recommend. They're not defects. So remember, when you're looking at the report, you're looking for defects. Defects, hidden items, structural defects, things safety. You're looking for things that are wrong. Not having shut-off valves, there's nothing against it. And when the house was built, the code might have been X. Does not mean you have to bring it to Y. For a good example, It's all the outlets in the house.
I was just gonna say, it's the damn outlets in the house.
Right, every house built in the fifties, sixties, they don't have grounded outlets. They're not grounded, nothing's grounded. But, you know, we started, as older people, we used to use the gray 3-prong plug adapters, right? So there were so many things that needed 3 prongs that people started getting rid of those 3-prong adapters and putting in a 3-prong outlet. But they still haven't grounded it, but it's a 3-prong outlet, so they can still plug in. So the inspector will go through, not grounded, not grounded, not grounded, to all the 3-prong outlets. So just because code says you should now upgrade to 3 prongs to ground them, if they're a 2-prong outlet, they don't need to be grounded. So I say to my sellers, when they come across that they find these outlets are not grounded, we will put them back to 2-prong outlets. We're not gonna ground them, because that costs a lot of money. But we will just put them back to where they were, the way they were. And that's what solves that problem.
Does a 2-prong outlet though have that like wider, you know, like one of the things is thinner and one like what? No, so what, they
It's
can't
just-
plug certain things in there?
Exactly. They won't be able to plug those things back in there. But you're gonna have to get an electrician and put in, do the grounding, do the right thing. So that's the common problem. That. Another thing in the old houses is knob and tube wiring. That's a big one. So you have to have that conversation with your buyer. Okay, this house does have knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube, for one, this is my opinion and knowledge of it, it's not dangerous. A lot of home insurance companies will not allow a house with knob and tube. They usually give you 6 months to replace it. Knob and tube is only dangerous if it's tampered with. So knob and tube is exposed wires that go through a knob when it gets to go through a hole in the wood, and it wraps a tube and it goes through a hole in the wood, and it wraps around the knob that goes when it changes directions. So you'll see like little white plastic knobs on the wood. That's for knob and tube. Now a lot of houses will have a knob and tube, but it's no longer working. Or a lot of older houses, the 3rd floor is probably, or 2nd floor may still be knob and tube. So you'll see a lot of like media. We have a house, we changed ours out. My son has a house, a row home on State Street. It still has knob and tube on the 2nd floor. It's not bad. You can, as a buyer, I would ask them to change this. I would put that as a request to correct the knob and tube. As a seller, you make the decision. Remember, there's nothing that you have to do. The seller doesn't have to do anything. They just have to agree that you want everybody to come to terms. When I was young, when I was new in the business, and I think everybody does this, I found out, is I wanted to win for my sellers or my buyers. I wanted to be the winner. I wanted to show them I'm the best agent. They should be so proud that they hired me. I'm going to get them the best. As a buyer, I'm going to get the seller to do everything. As a seller, they're not going to do anything, and I'm going to win. Guys, it's not about winning. It's a win-win or no deal. This is about the buyer wanting to buy the house, the seller wanting to sell their house, and everybody understanding it and figuring out what works. Understand that we have to correct these things, and remember to tell your seller that if you don't do it for this person, you have to do it for the next person. So let's just do it. But when the buyer is ridiculous with their demands, what they want, because the new agent saw the report and asked for every single thing that was listed on the report, when some of the things are just ridiculous, then it gets to be this situation, and it's not what we want. So that's why if you keep in mind, hidden defects, safety defects, structural defects. Keep that in mind, and everybody works that way, it'll be really easy. We know black and white what has to happen. It's not, there's no gray area there, all right? But it's when the buyer's agent or the seller's agent wants to prove that they're the best and I can win, and then we show you we're gonna get all this stuff taken care of, and it becomes a problem. That's the problem.
I love the reply to inspections. I see them because I'm doing your contracts with you, and like, it'll be a listing, you know, and the reply to inspection has like 17 or 22 repairs. And it's like this, you know, and then you have to go through it.
Right.
Say, well, we'll do that, and we won't do that, we won't do that, but we'll do that, we won't do that.
So when as I said, the buyers and sellers, the buyer, you gave the report, the buyers have the report, we'll talk to you tomorrow. So I look over the report and I think what I think should be done, what is structural, hidden, and safety, and I come up with my items. And then they tell me. And if they don't have those items on there, that's okay, it's up to the buyer. So you don't have to say, oh, wait, what about this? No, that's not our, if they want only, you know what, we really love the house, we're gonna remodel, we only want the GFI corrected, or whatever. If that's what they only want, that's fine. Our job is not to make the deal fall apart. Our job is the buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell, and that's it. And if the buyer looked it over and they said, you know what, it's not that bad, we're okay, we're gonna be doing things anyway, we don't need that stuff, we only want this done. Okay, so remember that. Don't say, oh no, but what about this? You gotta get this, you gotta get this. Don't be the reactive person, be the one that, okay. And if the seller says, you send them the seller's reply and the seller's report, and they looked it over, and the next day you talk to them and they say, well, you know what, we really looked at the report, oh my God, it was so much, but they only wanted these items, we're fine with it, we'll take care of it. That's what we want, guys. We want them, you know, so don't put your thoughts on them. It's not your opinions. You are not buying the house, they are. If they say, Pat, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I looked at the report and I looked at what I thought were structural and safety defects, and it's X, Y, and Z. This is what I think, what do you think? But if they ask me, I will tell them, but I don't like say after they tell me, but I ask them first, what do you guys think? What do you think about this? And then we go from there. Do not try to be the winner and be the best. Say, I got all this done for my clients. And when you're working with the seller, tell the seller when you're doing listing paperwork, because this is a changed market now. You guys are getting into it back to where we were. Sit down and say, listen guys, so here's our listing. We're gonna be negotiating your house twice. We're gonna be negotiating the offer and we're gonna be negotiating your inspections. So let them know about that. Because you don't want them to come down the pipe and say, what do you mean this inspection? I thought, no. So give them a heads up that you're negotiating twice. It's important to do that. All right? I think that's everything I have for inspection reports. Marcia, anything else?
No, I have to think.
Anybody have a question about it? No?
I think it would be very wise when you're going out with your buyers, though, to counsel them prior to showing homes
Yes.
what the inspection is all about, and to not go crazy. You're not rebuilding the house, you know, so tread lightly.
Yes. Which is why I just say structural safety and
Right.
hidden defects.
You know,
Yes.
if you say that ahead of time,
Yes.
so it's in their brain that they're not gonna have,
And
ask for 17 repairs.
so say that to both the buyers and the sellers ahead of time, so they're all prepared for it. Yes.
You also said about the credit. So for the credit, would that be taken off their mortgage or like their down payment? or
It's
how-
their seller, it becomes a seller's assist.
Okay.
So it reduces how much money you have to bring to the table.
Okay, gotcha.
So that means you get to keep that money in their pocket to make the repairs.
Okay, gotcha.
And there's limits
Right.
depending upon financing. You know, I'm gonna be in on it when you're writing your deals, but there's limits. You can't ask for
Yeah.
$50,000. Financial institutions have limits on how much
Yeah.
they'll
But
allow.
before you get to
you.
that, Marcia, looking at it, talk to the lender, because you don't want to be writing it, look like you didn't know what you're doing.
Right.
Marcia should not even have to question that. You should have already had that conversation with the lender.
Right.
How much credit can they get? Because you don't want to put that on paper and then tell them later, oh gosh, I just found out you can't get $50,000, you can only get 5.
Right.
Because Marcia told me that.
Okay.
So now you look like you're incompetent, right? So you want to do that ahead of time.
Okay.
Say, okay, I got the report, oh my gosh, Bruce,
Joyce.
Joyce, how much is the maximum credit I can ask for this, for repairs?
And don't forget, if you've already asked for
Right.
like an assist, like it's part of the original
Right.
deal, like $3,000 assist for settlement costs, that factors in,
Right.
and you can't, the repair assist is just gonna add to that, and then again, if there's a maximum.
Right,
So
that's why I say
that
sometimes you
first
can't get
assist,
it in
yeah,
one
you
assist.
can't, sometimes you can't get much more
Yeah,
than
you
what
can't
you
add
already
on.
put in the
Talk
contract.
to the lender
Mhm.
before you do anything,
Okay.
before you even discuss the repair. If you sold a report and it's got a lot of things from the buyer, call your lender and say, listen, I'm negotiating inspections, can they get a credit? How much? Because they'll tell you right then and there. They already have a 3% assist and they're putting 3% down, their max. Or they're putting 20% down and they have a 3% assist, they can get another 3% assist. So find out ahead of time. This way you know what you're doing.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get any more money
Right.
as a credit, and then the only alternative is either do the repairs or the deal dies,
Right.
you know?
And you know what? When you present your list, and you know, you say, and you, you know, I always like the line, as you and I both know. It makes the other agent feel like, oh God, I guess I'm supposed to know this. Because they often don't. But I'm like, I'll say, as you and I both know, we already have the seller's assist, so we can't ask for a credit, so we need you to do the repairs. If you say it like that, anytime there's a question like that, I say, as you and I both know. Because they like, oh, well, I guess I should have known that. So it's a great line I use all the time.
Okay.
Do you have conversations with sellers now, since there was such a long period of time that buyers were waiving inspections? Are you having conversations now saying inspections are back? It's for everyone's benefit that there's a home inspection done on the house. Are you saying things like that
Yeah,
as a
I don't-
listing agent?
Yeah, I don't say it's a benefit for everybody. I just say we are getting
Well,
back.
legally it
Yeah,
is.
but I just say we're getting back to normal, back to the normal market that we've always been in prior to this COVID in these last couple of years. Back to where the buyers are making offers, they're not making the offers 20, 50, 100,000 that we're asking. We're not getting 20, 30 offers. We may get 1 or 2 or 3. We may get below asking, and they will be doing inspections.
Yeah.
So it's a normal market. Luckily, we're still strong. In this area of the state of the country, where values
Yeah.
are still up, unlike the West Coast. So now is the time to sell, to get top dollar, but we will be doing inspections. They will be doing inspections. Be prepared for that.
Cool. Do you think a lot of listing agents are having that conversation?
Yes.
That's
I
good.
think- I think everybody's having that conversation.
Good.
Because you get one, you know, if you don't, and you start getting one with an inspection, like, whoa, what happened?
Right.
And they're there. I mean, we're doing inspections. So-
Good.
So
We're
most of
still
them are-
getting offers in there where they're waiving inspections,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
I know.
Yeah, Keith has
I
3
believe
offers
it.
in on a property and
Yeah.
one has full price with no inspection, so of course,
Yeah.
we're gonna go with that.
I have a 1929 home on Amos Land in Morton. It's a 1929 house, and they waive inspections. So
You know, be careful if you get your buyer to waive, you know, we have an instance where somebody's buyer is now coming back and saying, you told me to waive inspections.
That's right.
And there's water in the basement. So Dominic, I don't think he ever really did it, but I think he was thinking of having like an affidavit, you know, in the event that you waive
Yeah,
inspections.
we don't need that now, we're pretty
Right.
much past it, but yeah.
Right, we're past that market, but
So if your
You know.
client waives inspections, I would send an email to them, say, listen,
Yep.
I see you want to waive inspections, it's my recommendation that you do inspections, but it's your choice. This way you have it in writing. But if you have it, you're probably not gonna see, you guys are probably not gonna see waiving inspections going forward. We're
Is-
pretty much done.
Was the reason why they were waiving inspections because they wanted that inspection time to be less? Than
No, they wanted to beat out the other
Competitive.
offers.
Oh, it's to be competitive.
Yes.
Alright, gotcha.
Yes. That's still so.
That's-
So the last
Yeah,
2
they-
years,
it was
years,
rampant.
I had maybe 1 inspection out of 20.
Same.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
not 20.
But
But
you're competing for a
Pat's a
house.
lot better than
the
me.
the home inspectors are probably
Oh, yeah.
like,
Because you're competing
We're-
for a house,
right.
and you don't even know like
they're-
if
they're
anything is wrong
busy.
Yeah,
with
but
it.
they want it, and you can't, if you're writing 10 offers on a house, you do whatever it takes to get the house.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
'cause
either
it was
waive
such-
it or don't buy a house.
It's such
Yeah.
a crazy market.
It was nuts.
It was really
Really?
nuts.
Yes.
So the other thing Barb asked me if we had time, and I have about 7 minutes, to talk about price reductions. So, and when you take a listing now, you need to know how to price houses. Look, I was really good at pricing houses until this market shifted. And at the beginning of this market, I was still pricing houses the way I, like an appraiser, like I always did. And the sellers were like, yeah, no, we want to go higher. And I always went into a listing with, I will not go over this price because I'm not going to take an overpriced listing. I'm not going to go over this price. And I lost 5 listings in a row. And then I watched them and they went up higher and they sold. So then I went into the market like, okay, whatever. You tell me what much you want to list it for, and we'll list it for that price, and we'll still sell the 100 over. So it was crazy. So now we're getting back to pricing a house. Know how to price a house. Look at the comps. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples, not apples to bananas. Okay? Look at your comps. And you're not at the market where we say, okay, so the comp says it's 300, so we're going to price it at 325. We're not in that market anymore. The comp says it's 300, you might want to price it at 290 because the market is going down. Know that, and then have that conversation with your sellers, please, now, if you're listing a house. So the market is turning, as you probably have heard on the news. The good news is the news says the market prices are really going down. So we're not there as bad as like the West Coast, So they're probably aware. So you can have this conversation, they're probably a little bit receptive, or they're not. Say, sorry, you missed the opportunity. Prices, we need to know that if we don't have this house sold, and my rule of thumb is if we don't have the house so I tell them, if you don't have 10 showings or an offer in 2 weeks, we need to do a price adjustment. So, and I tell them, if we have 10 showings and no offer, then I did my job to get them in the house. Your house then did not sell itself. And then if we don't have 10 showings, then, you know what, it just, in the internet world, it was overpriced for what it is, and we need to do a price adjustment. But have a conversation with them ahead of time about pricing, and have them prepare to price adjust every 2 weeks. Because if we get back to those ones, I was telling people, I used to have a board of listings. I always carried between 8 and 12 listings, active listings. My board isn't even on the wall. I mean, you put a listing up and it's
Flying.
down. So we don't have listings like that, but we will get back to that. And every week, you have to have a conversation with your client, say, I'm sorry, we didn't get any showings this week. Wait, is that a different conversation you guys aren't gonna be prepared for? They're not fun. Sorry, nothing happened this week, but 2 houses came on the market, so you have 2 more competitors. Based on those, your new competition, I recommend we adjust your price to here. And you just have to be very laser focused on your market as the market shifts.
So now you're looking at actives for your
You're
comps.
looking at, well, after I always look at both sold and actives,
Oh, always.
always. So I look at my sold to get the price, and then I go to the comps, and I look at where I am compared to the comps. And as the market shifts, it's kind of like this little domino effect.
Yes.
You want to be below. You want to be, because you want the other houses to sell your house. You want to be the next one sold, because you're going to have these markets where you're going to have all these houses on the market, and one house will sell. You want your house to get that house. So when you come on the market, you want all these other houses because they're higher than the same house, than this house, and condition. And then when somebody else comes on the market that's lower, and you didn't sell, you want to jump below them. So it's kind of this till you get the house sold. It's a whole different strategy than what you've seen in the last couple of years. You guys have not experienced these price adjustments. But what I'm telling you now, though, is to have the conversations. So any listing appointments you're going on now, have that conversation. Not the listing appointment, but when you're writing the listing. You know, when you're at the point of signing the contract, not if you're just going to have an appointment. You don't want to scare them. But when you're ready to sign that contract, say, okay, Mary, I want you to know the market, as you know, has shifted. And if you say, as you know, it's kind of like that same conversation with the other agent. As you know, the market has shifted. So we need to be very aggressive, and we need to, you want to sell your home, right? And you notice I'm doing the nodding? Because I want her to say, yep. So you want to sell your home, right? So what do we need to get your house sold? We need to price it right. So we need to beat this house. See this house right here? We need to beat this house. And this house is $390 right now, so I think we should come on the market at $378. And we'll see if we can get our house on the market. Now, if we don't have the 10 showings in the first 2 weeks or an offer, then we need to do a price adjustment. So I'll be calling you on this day, and we'll discuss your price adjustment. Will that work for you? Yes, great, thank you. And you do that because you need to have these conversations. You need to be aggressive having conversations. So these last 2 years have not been the norm. Get rid of these 2 years and go back to normal. And the number one complaint everybody has about realtors is what?
Lack of communication.
Right. Because when you have your house sitting on the market 6 months, 9 months, and they don't hear from you since you listed it, oh yeah, that's what's you're getting back. You'll get back to houses being on the market that long. And if they don't hear from you, what is that? They're nervous. Like, what's going on? Why is my house not selling? What's going on? You need to get a plan and get in the habit of calling weekly. It's horrible. It's a very difficult conversation to call every week and say, Mary, I'm sorry, we had no activity this week. So, but you have to do it. They need to hear from you. But I can say, Mary, we had no activity this week, but I want you to know, the same homes that were on the market when we listed are still on the market. So nothing else is sold. You need to know the laser focus on your market around that property. Okay? Be an expert of that market. Wherever you have a listing, know what's going on. And before you call Mary, have all your facts in front of you. Or if something happened and you want her to see, because you need a person, send her those new listings. Say, look, this is what just came on the market. This is now our competition. We need to be aggressive and beat them out. Are you ready to make the adjustment? So be prepared for that, guys. It's a little different than what you've been used to. It's going to be very interesting. Anything else, Marcia?
No.
All right. We are,
Good job, Pat.
thank you. We are 12 o'clock. Becca, you're in charge of turning that.
Oh,
on.
sure.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for coming in.